Okay, we are back. You knew we'd be back. We told you we'd be back. We are here, Ace and the Quiet Storm. You got to call him the Quiet Storm. Anybody with the beautiful Morgan Freeman gray beard is
That's
the
right.
whatever his
Right.
name is. You know what I mean? I'm
That's
Ace.
right.
I am the son, Alan Jr. I'm here with my wonderful father, Alan Sr., aka the Quiet Storm. How we feeling today, Dad?
We're feeling very good. Feeling very good, Ace. We're feeling good, and it's always good to be on here with my man, my mellow, my son, my dude, the young prince, the heir
Yeah,
apparent. You know,
we are
um,
here, baby.
yeah, we in here, and we're happy for week two, our second ever podcast, as
Yes,
we discuss a breakdown of the 2022 NFL Draft.
yes,
Last
yes.
week was a wonderful experience, and it was
Right.
really something I'll cherish forever. But being able to do this with my son, to all of you who may click into this channel, this you can't find a better son. Number one, but two, you can't find anybody that loves sports as much as we do. We're not, so you're gonna get this from a fan's point of view. It's not gonna be from an expert point of view. We're not experts.
We're
Most
not.
fans are not, but we're gonna use this platform to let other players, if they watch this one day, owners, if they hear about it, you're gonna know exactly how the fans feel about how you're treating our teams.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we're gonna make that happen, and I say we get it right into it. What
Let's
say
get
you?
right into it. We figure we'd start. Listen, if you are here for a full 32 team breakdown, you can go ahead and slide on out to the left. We are not here to break down the Cleveland Browns NFL draft for 2022. That's not, it's
Yeah,
not,
if you're looking
it's
for the
not,
Jacksonville Jaguars, we this ain't it. you
shout
you
out
might
to
be
those
better.
teams,
You'd be
you
better
know.
off looking for somebody to talk about Jacksonville State. We don't really, we really don't. We're not going to discuss Jacksonville. We're not. We might go across Jacksonville to find out why they drafts are so bad, but but we're not going to talk about. We're not going to talk about Jacksonville
I don't
like
think they
we
were that
really care
terrible.
about
They weren't
Jacksonville.
horrible, but
But they
but
were,
we're,
they
we're
had a
definitely
they had a draft. They had a draft. Let's just say they
they.
drafted some people.
You know what? They drafted. They absolutely
That's right.
drafted. We're definitely going to start with the best drafts. I don't mind kicking it off. I feel like Baltimore had a wonderful, wonderful draft this year. They started off round one. They picked pick number 14, came up and got Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame.
Hmm.
Kyle Hamilton, I thought was easily the best safety coming out. I thought he's just really, really solid in all places. He wasn't the best defensive back. Sauce Gardner absolutely is the best defensive back, and I
Hmm.
think we'll get to him because he's going to be on the list of best drafts too with the Jets that took him. But Baltimore definitely went. They got a day one starter, Kyle Hamilton.
Hmm.
Another first round pick. They came through and they went and got their offensive line plugged in. Tyler Lindenbaum, center out of Iowa.
Hmm.
Definitely a legit day one starter. Um, and it's tough, what's going on in Baltimore right now. They don't have those weapons. They just traded Hollywood Brown to the Cardinals. They still haven't traded for any kind of wide receiver. So now they're still looking at, they have Rashad Bateman. They have kids
Hmm.
who are talented, but when you have a guy like Lamar Jackson who's ready to win right now, I believe,
Hmm.
you have to nail your draft. So those first two picks definitely locked it in, and then a couple more picks from that draft, round two. This one was interesting because with Nakobe Dean on the board, they went and took David Ojabu, the
Mm.
linebacker who tore his Achilles in his pro day.
Yes.
Knowing that he's not going to play this year, but knowing his talent is so high, it's
Hmm.
interesting that they went and picked him. He's a legit guy. He's wonderful technique, smart, plays tough. He plays every down like it's his last.
Hmm.
I thought that pick was interesting with Nakobe Dean on the board because he had a really, really big fall.
Right.
Nakobe Dean, linebacker from Georgia, fell a lot further than I thought he would. But between those three picks, they definitely shored up their offensive line. They got another offensive line around 4. They
Mm-hmm.
went and got Jalen Armour Davis, who we know very well as Bama fans, cornerback out
Mm-hmm.
of Alabama, who I think is going to be a better pro than people realize.
Yes.
Um, and they went and they got better on the drafts. You have to get better when you're, especially in the AFC right now. You have to get better now.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they had the overall best draft. It started off different, but top to bottom, rounds 1 through round 6, where they had their last pick. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore got really, really good this year.
You know,
They
it,
still need to
it,
address wide receiver, but their draft,
yeah,
they knocked their
yeah.
draft out the park.
What's interesting about Baltimore is they're a lot like a team we'll discuss in NFC East, Dallas, and that over the years, but they've done it since they've been able to sustain it over a long period. The Baltimore Ravens always seem to draft very well. They always seem to draft defensive players that have a little edge to them. Jalen Armour Davis is going to have a little edge to him because he fell all the way to the fourth round. You're
Right,
going to look at guys like um, Isaiah Likely, another fourth round pick, who's a tight end.
right.
He probably felt like he had a second round or third round grade. He fell to the fourth. So I think Baltimore um, had a very good draft. I would give the draft a B plus, not
Okay,
necessarily an A,
okay.
primarily because you have to take some hits if you're Baltimore for David Ojabo. Not that he's not going to be productive, but
That's fair. That's
win.
very fair.
Then you also have to consider they drafted, if I'm not mistaken, they drafted a punter from Penn State, Jordan Stout. Now,
Listen,
unless he's the second coming
Ray
of
Guy.
a big guy or somebody as a kicker, unless he's a multifaceted punter, I don't understand drafting a punter because you could always find a punter,
You can,
and especially the fourth
but special
round.
teams.
But you have, you know, Baltimore had, I believe, 6 picks in the fourth round. They had no fifth round pick, so they drafted heavy in that fourth round.
Right.
So I think they felt like, you know what, let's grab us. They were probably very happy with their board at that point, to where whoever they picked now was for depth. So let me go get a punter. But punters in the fourth,
Listen, special teams matters, man. Special
it
team. We
does
know
matter,
special teams
especially in
matters.
today's NFL when you want to try to pin these offenses back as far as possible because you
Right.
don't want a short field and you want them to try to earn 90 yards or 85 yards to score. So I get it, but I think they had a decent draft. I think as far as A drafts go, other than the team, a couple of teams that we're going to talk about later, I think most teams um, got very high grades. Now I will say the Detroit Lions
Mm,
surprised me with their draft. Uh, Aiden Hutchinson, good
right.
move on their part.
Right.
A little surprise pick that also in the first round, number 12, they took Jamison Williams. Now,
Roll
I'm
Tide.
not upset they took Jamison there. Just surprised they took him, um,
Traded up for him too.
traded up for him because, his injury. But listen, the kid's going to be okay. You can't teach speed. Either you have it or you don't. You
Right.
can't teach speed. You can
Right.
teach technique, but you cannot teach speed.
Right.
So I
He has
think,
better hands than people give credit for too.
yes,
Absolutely does.
and I know that CBS Sports um, on the NFL side gave the pick of Williams a B grade, which I think is fair. They gave Hutchinson a B plus grade, which I think is fair. Then they get interesting in the second round. They go with Josh Pascal, the
Hmm.
edge rusher out of Kentucky.
I like him. I like that kid.
Now he plays with a nice motor. He plays hard every
He
play.
definitely doesn't get tired as much as normal
Yeah,
DNs does. I like him a lot.
he wants to play. He likes to hit people. And I think he's going to be a good pick for Detroit.
I think so
Um,
too.
another interesting one out of them, and they got actually an A- grade for their draft. So
Okay.
apparently they drafted well. They addressed some issues, safety, Kirby Joseph in the third round. They snatched up who I think is actually a pretty good player. The linebacker out of is sixth round, but he's a Malcolm Rodriguez out of Oklahoma State. I think that
Okay.
that kid is going to be a very serviceable NFL player, barring injury. He's actually got the highest grade out of all of their draft picks. He had A- grade.
Okay.
So for him to be snatched up in the sixth round, that's a heck of an accomplishment for Detroit. At first,
I'm
we
not
were
mad at that at all.
concerned with Detroit in their draft, but they ended up coming through and getting themselves a couple of nice players. And then you have Kansas City Chiefs,
I like Kansas
a
City's draft a
team.
whole lot. I like Kansas City draft a whole lot. Trent
Yep.
McDuffie, they traded up. They went and got Trent McDuffie, cornerback out of Washington. Washington had two stud cornerbacks, and
Yes.
getting McDuffie here, who I think is the best one out of there, and then following that up with another first round pick,
Hmm.
getting George Karlaftis. That kid out of Purdue's the end. A lot of people were obviously sold on Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau. We will get to Thibodeau, Mr. New York Giant Kayvon Thibodeau soon.
Hmm.
But this kid out of Purdue can ball. This kid out of
Yeah.
Purdue is really good. I think he could have gone even sooner than that. So him being there for Kansas City right there at the end of that first round, that definitely makes their defense better. That
Yeah.
division got legitimate firepower in the offseason.
From
You
every
know,
team in
from
that
every
every team,
direction. You
yes,
bring
every
Russell Wilson
direction.
in with those wide receivers there in Denver.
Hmm.
You got Tim Patrick, you have Cortland Sutton, you've got Jerry Judy out there, and
Mm.
now you have Russell Wilson just sliding right in. They made 37 jumps higher
Yeah.
at that quarterback play. That team's
Yeah.
ready to win now. You still have Justin Herbert coming into his own. We saw, in that last game of the year when they were playing the Raiders, how he just never let his team. He didn't let his team loose. They could have made
Hmm.
the playoffs. They are a talented team. Keenan Allen on the outside. They have
Mm.
Austin Eckler in the backfield. They have
Hmm.
Mike Williams on the other side. They have
Yes.
legitimate firepower.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams coming from Green Bay going into Las
To pl-
Vegas. Now
yeah,
all of
to
a
play
sudden
with
you
his
have
old
Devontae
college
Adams,
teammates. So now he's
Derek
playing.
Carr. Yeah. So now
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
Darren Waller. You have Devontae Adams, who you can argue is
Hmm.
the best wide receiver in football.
Yeah.
These teams got great. So
Yeah.
addressing defense with their two first round picks made perfect sense.
It
And
definitely
then
did. And then
yeah,
in the,
and then they addressed their Tyreek Hill loss,
yep.
going to get trading up with New England again to get Sky Moore out of Western Michigan. And I think
Yeah.
Sky Moore is a wide receiver that people really didn't see enough of. Western Michigan is not a big time team. You're not going to see him a lot on TV, but the kid can play. The kid can play. When we get into camp and you start to hear little names coming out of camp, Sky Moore is going to be one of those names that starts pinging on the radar for a lot of people.
Well,
Um,
I will say this, that and no pun intended, but the sky's the limit for that kid. He has the he has the highest. In fact, he has the highest draft grade of all of Kansas City's drafts. He has an A+ grade.
right,
So some people will say that you just gave Patrick Mahomes another weapon. You're trying to keep him upright. You've got some Varian Kennard they took in the fifth round,
I like it.
who's going to be a service. He's going to be a very good tight end. And here's the thing about the draft, that when you look at these teams, and I got to give a shout out also for Kansas City, they took a running back out of Rutgers, our home state team,
Right.
Isaiah Pacheco, and that's to give some added boost. And he likes to catch the ball out of the backfield.
Okay.
Um, they did address, they did have 3 picks in the seventh round, which helped them greatly, and they got no less than a B grade for all 3 of those seventh round picks. So they did do well. Jalen Watson, Washington State cornerback, Isaiah Pacheco, as I just mentioned, out of Rutgers,
Right.
and Najee Johnson, the safety out of Marshall. And the thing about these drafts, when you get these A grades um, and all that good stuff, you're not grading. You're not trying. You're not going to draft 7, 8, 9, 10 all pros.
Right.
but you can draft solid, serviceable, hungry, motivated players in each round.
You can.
And I think that when you're a Kansas City, who's only a couple of players away from being maybe getting back to that Super Bowl again, even with their losses, I think they did an outstanding job with their draft.
Right. I
I
agree.
think they did an outstanding
I
job.
agree. One more team, since we are here, the other team in New York, the Jets. That Jets draft
Well,
was
now we get into the nitty gritty
that Jets
on teams
draft.
that drafted well.
Yeah, that Jets draft was wonderful. My favorite player. Now, I'm not saying he was the best, but my favorite player coming into the draft was Ahmad Sauce Gardner, cornerback out of Cincinnati. Kid had never gave up a touchdown in coverage in his entire career. He's got that you're not going to score on me type vibe to him. He carries himself that way. The
Mm,
Jalen Ramseys of the world, the Deion Sanders of the world, the Rod Woodsons of the world. They had that. I'm taking on the best player out here and I'm locking him up. And the
yes,
Jets
yeah,
needed a guy like that, you know.
yeah. Hmm.
And then they locked back in the first round. They came up, they traded up, and they got who I felt was the best wide receiver in the draft, and Garrett Wilson at Ohio
Hmm.
State. Ohio State's been pumping out wide receivers, man, and they have a class coming up. We'll talk about it in the future, but they've got a class coming out next year that's going to be spooky at wide receiver.
Hmm.
But Garrett Wilson can go. He does everything well. He's fast. His hands are really good. Great route runner. He can come in. He could play day one right now. I think Garrett Wilson. I would say long shot for offensive rookie of the year. I think he's going to be that type of good for them because the
Well,
Jets need one of those types of guys.
well, in today's NFL, a receiver winning that award is not so far fetched.
It's not.
Um, Normally, you used to see quarterbacks and running backs get that
Right.
award. But with today's NFL being so pass happy, it wouldn't surprise me that a receiver gets that award. And it's interesting that at 10 they took Garrett Wilson over uh, Jameson Williams, who, let's not forget, transferred in the portal to Alabama from Ohio State.
From
So just
Ohio State.
imagine how good Ohio State's receiving core would
Would
have
have been
been
if
if
yeah.
Jermaine had stayed there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It definitely made
and
sense for,
then
for them to take him. It definitely made sense because of the Jamison Williams injury in the national championship game. It made sense for them to go Garrett Wilson, who can come in and play day one.
yes,
Detroit's going to have to wait on Jamison, but he's going to be legit. Um,
yeah,
Third first round pick, they traded up, and this was my favorite single pick of the draft, trading up to get Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State.
hmm,
So, we talked about Aiden Hutchinson. We talked about the kid out of Purdue. We talked about Kayvon Thibodeau. In my opinion, Jermaine Johnson is the second best edge rusher in this draft. I think he's a better rusher than Aiden Hutchinson. I think Thibodeau's one. I think Jermaine Johnson two. Now, all around, I think Hutchinson's a better player. But I think if you are talking about let's go get the quarterback, Jermaine Johnson is going to be a monster for them. I think he's going to be truly, truly legit. Um, and then they come back in the second round early and they get the best running back in the draft. I'm starting to rethink now. I'm starting to think the Jets had my favorite draft because
you
this
know
like
the
that's how you
Jets.
knock four straight picks clear out
Yeah,
of
I
the
mean
park.
when and you
Goodness.
have to if you're the Jets because you only have 7 picks because you did all of this trading up. You gave up a lot for
Right.
these picks, so those picks have to be knock them out the box picks, especially because you had 3 first round picks and one second round pick,
Right.
1 3 third round pick, and 2 fourth round picks. So they
And two
got
fourths.
not other no other picks after the fourth round. So the fifth and sixth, they got nothing. But I think they addressed a lot of needs. They got a B plus grade. I think it should be an A grade, but they got a B plus grade, which for the Jets is like an A grade because they haven't been doing very well uh, on the draft boards. So I think that they have set themselves up with Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson. You're addressing some of those immediate needs. I think all 3 of them could be starting week 1. I wouldn't be surprised Brees Hall gets a whole lot of playing time starting week 1. I think Jeremy Ruckert, the tight end out of Ohio State, a very good tight end. Um, I think they really did well. I think that
Right.
um, they really took their time and they identified who they wanted early and went to get them. So when you see teams trade as much as they did, they zeroed in on a player and they went and got that player. So
Right.
we'll see how it all shakes out because most of these guys, you you're going to see flashes of their potential this year, but
You will.
next year in year three, you're going to see exactly what type of player you drafted by year two, year three, because the learning
I
curve
love
is
that Jets draft. I love
yeah.
that Jets draft. Are there
And
any other teams that you wanted to touch on as far as the best before we get to my favorite part,
well,
the worst drafts?
before we get there, I did want to address a team that sort of got overlooked.
Mm,
They came out of the draft with a minus grade, and I will have to say that the Seattle Seahawks really had a very good draft. Now they had some head scratching picks, and now their first pick in the pick number 9, Charles Cross, the offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. That's a no-brainer. That boy's going to be very good. I've watched him play. I've watched some tape of him over the past week.
okay.
He's going to be a good player. Another good player that you normally don't see coming out of this school, Boye Mafe, the defensive lineman out of Minnesota.
Minnesota.
That guy is going to be a good player. Once he gets some coaching and works on his technique, he's so strong and so good. Technique, he needs better technique and how to use his hands. I think
Okay.
um, NFL coaching will help him with that. But that's a really good pick. Kenneth Walker, the running back out of Michigan State.
I like Kenneth
Now,
Walker a lot.
I like him more apparently than some of the so-called professionals because they only gave him a C plus grade.
I like Kenneth Walker.
But I think he's going to be for what Seattle's going to use him for with a nice offensive line. I think he's going to be very, very good. Um, Another pick that intrigues me that they got an A grade on Kobe Bryant, the other cornerback from Sauce Gardner. Now that
Mm,
those two were considered probably the best tandem of cornerbacks in college football last year.
okay.
Sauce Gardner on one side, you had Kobe Bryant on the other. He's a very good cornerback. That was the strength of their defense, was their secondary. It was very hard to throw on um, Cincinnati until Alabama showed up. But even then, they ran the ball a great deal because they respected those corners so much. They didn't want to take chances turning the ball over to those defensive backs. So I
Right.
think that um, they're gonna, Kobe Bryant is going to find himself really liked a great deal in Seattle. So I like their draft. Now
Okay.
the head scratching pick for me is in the 7th round. They took Bo Melton from Rutgers, and I never heard of him. And I I'm around the corner from Rutgers, so um, he got drafted 7th round, wide
Listen,
receiver.
listen.
Maybe
He may,
maybe the tape don't lie.
young Wayne,
Maybe the tape don't lie.
young Wayne Corbett. You know
That's
what I'm
right. He
saying?
might be the young Wayne Corbett because I don't know who. I hope Bo knows because I don't know who he. I have no idea what Bo is talking about. But
Yeah,
you know what? He got drafted 7th round.
he
Seventh
did.
round picks find it a little harder to make the 53-man roster. Um, Generally, but you can find some great talent um,
Okay.
in those schools. And in fact, Derek Young, the wide receiver from I believe the Lenoir Rhine school. I never heard of that school. Um, I'm not gonna pretend that I heard of that school. I can't even say the school name. I think it's Lenoir Rhine. Ooh,
Lenoir.
that sounds like some female name. Like,
Lenoir.
yo, what's your name, girl? Lenoir Rhine. Ooh,
Lenoir. Oh, Lenoir.
ooh, now you're talking. But he got a higher grade as a receiver than Bo Melton. So I don't know that little thing from Seattle. You got Bo Melton, but the guy you picked after Bo has a higher rating than Bo. But you know what?
Yeah.
They got their two guys.
Right,
They're
right. It's all
good
about value at that pick, I
in
guess, and
value and depth because they
that makes
do
sense.
have. So I think that if you're a special teams contributor, usually your late round picks
Yeah.
become that until they establish themselves as being an everyday, every down
Mhm.
starter. So I
You can
think
have a
that
legit career doing that. Look
you
at
can have
Matthew
a very
Slater
good,
in
yeah,
in New England. The kid, he's just got a career being the best special teams guy, and he's
yep,
made a lot of money. Pro
yep,
Bowls,
yeah,
indispensable. You
yeah.
know,
So I think that
Speaking
these
of
teams,
right, and then
for the
speaking of
most
not
part,
making Pro Bowls,
uh-huh.
we get to the Minnesota we get to the Minnesota Vikings having the worst one of the worst
Okay,
drafts.
now listen. I don't know who's drafting in
Uh,
Minnesota, but I was looking at Minnesota's draft, and I'm trying to say, okay, Lewis sign, I get him out of Georgia. They did pretty good with that pick. They did good
Kicking
with
hit hard.
Andrew Booth, the cornerback out of Clemson. Very nice
Here's
grade.
here's the thing about here's the thing about that. They dropped from 12 to 32 and they didn't get much. Like look what they got out of it.
Look
Look
what you
what they
got out
got
of
out of it, Pop
it.
Diggy. Look
So
what they got out of.
yeah,
Like Lewis Seen is a good player. He hits hard. I'm not mad at him. Andrew Booth Jr. I like Andrew Booth Jr. He's a good player. But then you get into Ed Ingram. I don't like him. Like he played at LSU. I don't like Ed Ingram as a guard in the NFL. I don't think he's going to be
they might
solid.
have to
I just
find a
don't see it.
different position for him. Um, hopefully, they can find a good position. I mean, you
Yeah,
took him with your second round pick, so you got to pay him second round money. So
right,
you're gonna have to
right.
figure
He needs
out
to play
a
for you.
role. Yeah, he needs to play for you. Brian Asamoah, Asamoah from the linebacker from Oklahoma, he has a very high grade, A grade. So they did decent with that pick. Here are the little picks that you wonder about with Minnesota, what they're thinking. You get yourself a tight end, Nick Muse from South Carolina. He was average at best, right? You get Jalen Naylor, wide receiver from Michigan State. I saw him drop like 4 passes in a row. So I mean, what you drop 2 in a row, you tend to sit down. Now you're
Yeah.
dropping three, and okay, maybe he's Jesus help us. So I look at that, and I look at Ty Chandler, good pick, very good pick with the edge rush out of Minnesota in the 5th round.
Yeah, don't
Safety,
like him either.
Mayo, but
I don't
meh.
like him either.
So they had
Minnesota had a tear. Like when you drop down from 12 to 32, something has to make sense. It has to.
yes,
And if you wanted to get better in the secondary, just stay at 12 and pick. Like they had guys. They could have went and they could have had Kyle Hamilton. They could have came up and got like if they want. I just don't understand. But I don't have to understand. But
no,
that's
no.
Minnesota to me had. I want to say other than other than the team we'll get to when we talked about the NFC East, they had the worst draft.
Well,
To answer that question, Delvin,
well, my
Minnesota had the worst
team.
draft, but we will talk about who had the second worst draft in a few minutes, my man.
Oh no, we're gonna talk about that right now. The worst draft, my worst further than Jacksonville. You don't have to look
We
no
getting straight
further than
into it.
Jacksonville. Yeah, we're gonna get straight into that because we got to spend the next half hour talking about the NFC East. So we need to finish up on Jacksonville. Listen, man. Everybody started off their draft picking a Georgia defensive player. So everybody like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Trayvon Walker, good pick. Not the best defensive player in the draft, but maybe he's good for them. Okay.
Okay,
Devin Lloyd, nice. Man, he played at Utah. Okay.
you're
He
not
might
feeling
be
Utah.
okay. Nah, not really. Then you go to Luke Fortner.
Why you say his name
Now,
like that?
Luke Fortner, the offensive, he's a center or something like that out of Kentucky. I okay. Then you go on and you get yourself Gregory Jr. in the 5th round.
My man Greg J.
Greg J. The 6th round from Ouachita Baptist.
I'm saying we out here.
Okay, so all the
Word to the
players that
Lord.
was on the board at that time, that's your guy, Jacksonville. That's
I
your
didn't
guy.
like the pick. I didn't
Now
like it when they
again,
took him.
he could be a plug-in guy for depth. Sometimes you can make a living in the NFL just being good enough to be a backup, a perennial backup until they draft
Okay.
somebody better than you. But so for the most part, he should see the field because they have no one else on the field. So they're gonna have to play almost every one of their picks, and they're gonna be horrendously bad again. Um, they have a D plus grade. I give them an F.
And,
I give them a straight F because you know you 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 didn't address your needs across the board,
right.
right? Why draft two middle linebackers? Why would you draft two guys that middle line? Now maybe you're gonna pick slide one over to the weak side or the strong side. Maybe you're gonna do that, but there's no guarantee they're gonna be productive over there. Especially with tight ends coming out the way with these two tight end
Right.
sets, two of those linebackers got to pick up a tight end when you go to these two tight end sets.
Yeah.
So you need your best linebacker in the center of your defense. Hopefully they know what they're doing a little bit, but you went and got yourself two inside linebackers, and we're gonna see how that works. And Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma from Wyoming. Yeah, they play football in Wyoming, so they're gonna
They do.
they play some kind of football
They
out there.
do.
So I
So
think overall those were the picks that those were the drafts that interested me the most. And now we're talking about
right.
the draft picks. Now there were some trades that went along. We're gonna get
There
into
were.
the NFC East. There were some trades that helped teams get better.
There
Uh,
were.
I think that
But let's stick let's stick on worst drafts as we switch into what we all came here for. We came here to talk about, the wonderful, wonderful NFC East.
Mhm.
If we're gonna keep this going with who had the worst drafts, let's bring up the worst name, the Washington Commanders, and start talking about what's
Yeah,
going
let's start
on out
there
there.
because the Washington Commanders. Um, here's the thing about the NFC East. Dallas is the current defending champion at division.
Yes.
Nobody has teams very rarely win that division two years in a row anymore. Um, you generally because during the off season, players go make extra more money somewhere else, or they just and you have to reshuffle your roster.
Right.
Most teams aren't keeping their core guys the way they should, and I think that's what has caused every other year you have a new Super Bowl champ, which is fine for parity's sake, but it does nothing for a play for play. It says a lot about your player
It
development or
does.
your franchise that you don't guys don't they want to leave first chance they get to go get paid. I get it. It's a business. You got to get your money. But I think that the Washington Commanders, here we go with their draft, right? Now,
Right. So my question, just to play off, one, was Josh was Jahan Dotson their number one wide receiver on the board? If if that answer is no, then what are we doing? Just stay where you were originally and take your favorite wide receiver off the board.
exactly.
You traded
Exactly.
back
You
and you
traded
got
back,
some middle round picks and you ended up
yes,
missing on
because they
Jamison
traded back
Williams.
and think about
You
if they had
yeah,
if they had stayed pat, they would have got a better receiver.
right. So wouldn't you have had either two earlier picks or Jamison Williams instead of Dotson? It's got nothing to do with me. I wish nothing but the worst for them. I appreciate them doing that. Let's move.
I I appreciate now here's you're spot on about that Dotson, you know, going number one, number 16th overall. That was a head scratcher. As a player, he's a good player,
Hmm.
but
Let's keep it
they
going.
had better. Now, second round pick is a sleeper pick for me because I had him as a second round pick myself. Fedarian Mathis from my beloved Alabama.
Roll damn Tide.
He's going to be a good player.
Right.
Brian Robinson Jr. I think they could have third round pick is a good spot for him. Um,
but not for that offense. I
but
don't
not for that
love him for
offense
that
because that
offense.
offense is horrible as we speak. Now they are getting a quarterback that can put up numbers, but he's down the road. He's going to win. Carson Wentz is now their quarterback. Are you hitching your horse to Carson Wentz?
What
Two
horse?
teams
How
had
many?
already
Okay, which
said
horse?
we're not hitching our wagon to you, Philadelphia
Right.
and
Indianapolis couldn't
Indy.
wait to trade
And
my man.
Indy won 11. What they go 11-6 or 12
No,
and
no,
5?
either 10 or
What?
11
What?
games they
Okay,
won,
10 or 11 games they won, and they
but they
couldn't
got
wait to get rid of
smoked in the
Carson
last
Wentz. They couldn't
because he
wait to get
couldn't
rid of
beat Jacksonville in the
no,
last game of the year to make the
no.
playoffs. They got
And
smoked by
he got
Jacksonville,
smoked by
and
Jacksonville.
Wentz was horrific. Like they couldn't wait. They were trading Carson Wentz at halftime.
Yeah, Carson went. So now he's going to go to a team that's dysfunctional with a psychotic owner, and guess what? He's going
Right.
to get. He's probably going to get a long-term deal and still not win 9 games a year.
But it's
Right?
okay because the Commanders fans are going to say, look, he threw for almost 4,000 yards. He had 27 touchdowns. He only had
Yeah.
7 interceptions.
Uh-huh.
Cool. Please never get Carson Wentz off your team. Keep him forever.
Keep him.
I'll
The
contribute
two
to his.
best. But I
I'll
will
contribute
say
to his paycheck.
the two best picks Washington had, Percy Butler and Sam Howell, who I think is going to end up taking Carson Wentz's job.
You
I
think
think
so?
if even though he's a 5th-round pick at quarterback, I think he's going to take Carson Wentz's job one day
You know what's sad?
because
I think Sam Howell is out of this league in 3 years.
he sure is. Listen, he's going to
I don't
take
like
his
him.
job before he gets bounced. At some point, Carson Wentz is going to screw up to the point that kid Sam Howell's
It's
going to
Sam
get in
Howell
there,
time, as
and
it should
Sam
be.
Howell might win 2 or 3 games, and all of a
And you
sudden,
know
like, oh,
what?
let's
You know what? In all this, I think Taylor Heineke is the best quarterback on that roster. I still think Taylor Heineke's the best quarterback on that roster, even
I
when they
think
brought in
if I'm
Wentz.
Taylor Heineke, just trade me, man.
Just get me on out of here
Just release me because I'm better than Wentz now.
now, today.
I'm better than Wentz. But okay, Carson Wentz, he threw for 4,000 yards. Look at all the touchdowns. Yeah, you lost to Jacksonville. Bad.
With
When
everything
all
on the
you
line.
needed,
With everything on the
when
line,
all you
baby.
needed.
Not with everything on the line.
No.
You know.
So, so I think that their draft was I don't know why somebody would give them a B- draft. Maybe because Fidarian Matt. Here's the thing about Washington, too, since we're talking about them. They must I don't know if they have a direct line to Nick Saban, but now they have 3 linemen that went to Alabama.
They do. They do. Shout out to Deron Payne.
Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Fidarian Mathis. They now have 3 guys from Bama on their line. Now that would be great if they were still at Bama. But you're in the NFL now,
In the NFL.
right? You're
But
gonna have
that
to.
defensive line is going to be good. They'll get Chase Young back, who I never wish injury on anyone. I hope Chase Young comes back. I hope he's as good as he ever was.
Well, his
That defensive
presence
line
was definitely
is going to
missed,
be legit.
especially when teams were able to pass and get rid of the ball quickly
Right.
on that pass rush. I think um, Chase, when he gets back, it's going to help Jonathan Allen. It's going to help Payne. It's going to help Mathis.
I agree.
He's more of a run-stopping defensive tackle to begin with. So him and Payne together in the interior of that line are going to be pretty good. But their inability to address the cornerback position is bad in that division.
Yeah. And
They
they should
waited
have
to the
stayed
7th
exactly where they
round.
were. Yeah.
They waited to the 7th round to finally get a cornerback, Christian Holmes, and he only
Yep.
has a C grade. So they're going to pick on him if he sees the
Yep.
field. But
They should
again,
have stayed right where they were and took Kyle Hamilton.
yeah.
That's the
But
one
again,
thing that I saw as
uh,
a fan of the Giants, as an NFC East guy. If they stayed and they took Kyle Hamilton, I think that defense becomes a top seven, top eight defense
Okay.
moving forward for there, but they
Okay.
didn't. They traded back. They got Dotson, who I guess, it's just not what you want to do when you're coming into a new name, when you're trying to command things.
Hmm.
All they commanded was the worst draft in our division.
The worst draft in the division, and they didn't do anything in free agency to make it better. The weakest link was their secondary. My, not your defensive line. Your defensive
Right,
line was not the biggest problem for Washington. Did they get to the quarterback enough? No. But that's once Chase Young went down, they didn't have anybody good enough off the edge at
right.
that point. So instead of getting depth at the edge, getting the edge rusher, you go defensive tackle second pick. That's fine. But you should have addressed your secondary with pick
I
number
agree.
16 in the first. I think they
I,
should have took someone other than Jahan Dotson. I think they screwed their draft up. And then you go get Sam Howell and Cole Turner. And okay, whatever.
nah,
Eh.
you
Now we're
know.
gonna go to Philadelphia. Now
Now, you
I
want to
don't
talk
like
about a team
Philadelphia,
that,
but
listen,
they kind
Philly
of
had.
scared me a little
Ooh,
bit. Yeah, they kind of they only had now Philadelphia was very aggressive this draft. They only had 6 picks the entire draft for
right.
trading up to get the players they wanted, especially trading. They wanted Jordan Davis. They went and got Jordan
They
Davis,
got Jordan
who I
Davis.
think is going to be an
It's a wonderful pick.
outstanding interior lineman in the NFL. If he has the same hunger um, that he had in college, which says a lot about him, that he bypassed coming out in the 2021 draft because he wanted to go back and try to win a national championship. He
It's a
accomplished
wonderful
that.
pick.
So Jordan Davis is a great pick. I think the pick of Cam Jurgens is an excellent pick by them. Excellent pick by them.
I
They got
like Cam Jurgens a
an
lot. He's
offensive
mean.
lineman out of
He's,
Nebraska.
he's
I think,
mean. He's
yeah,
nasty. He's going to be able to play for them for a while. I like Cam
yep.
Jurgens
And
a
he's going to
lot.
start. He's going to start day one. Then Philadelphia swoops in and grabs N'Kobe Dean in the third round. Now,
That one hurt.
the
That one hurt.
only thing that bothers me more about that is that he's in the NFC East, because I think N'Kobe Dean is going to he's going to see rivalries that's going to just make him chew on bone. Dallas, the Giants, Washington. He's going to be playing in that division. Now, the problem with N'Kobe Dean, I think the reason why he slipped all the way to third was his size. Does it
Right.
right now?
Right.
Sam Mills was also undersized. The late Sam Mills who played with Carolina was also a
He
undersized
was. That's a great comp. That's a great
linebacker,
comparison.
and he had an outstanding career. So N'Kobe Dean has the potential to have an outstanding career with a little edge to him because of how far he fell back. And I think them going out to get Kyron Johnson and Grant um, Calcaterra
Terra, the tight
is
end
a
out of
great.
SMU.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think he's going to be
Yeah, I
good. I
like him a
think they're
lot.
going to be very good. But the thing that made their team better
AJ Brown,
was
man.
AJ Brown trade. Now, here's the thing you have. If you're the Philadelphia offense, because if you notice, the Eagles picked 4. They only had 5 picks the whole draft. 4 of those picks were on the defensive side of the ball. So they want to address the defense. They want to address that defense, which they need to in that division, especially with Dallas and now the Giants and Washington. They're gonna have defense. Defense is gonna win them more games than not. So
Right.
I think they did good with that. But getting AJ Brown, 24 years old, outstanding receiver, nice
Outstanding wide
size.
receiver. Goodness.
Him and Devonta are going to be a problem for teams.
Dallas
Uh,
Goddard at tight end.
Dallas got it at tight end. That's going to be a problem.
It's
They're
gonna be a
going
big
to
issue.
move the ball. What you're hoping for if you're Philadelphia, because they didn't draft a quarterback, so they're hitching their future on Jalen Hurts right now.
They are.
Can Jalen Hurts throw them to the playoffs? Can Jalen Hurts throw them to the division title or
That's
to
a
a wild
that's a
card?
great point.
That's going to
Great point.
be now. Last year they were a wild card team, so you can be a playoff team, but is he going to get them to the promised land as a thrower? Because as teams get better and better in the playoffs,
They're gonna
you're
make
going to
him
have
throw.
to at
He's
some
not
point,
gonna have to beat him with his legs.
right?
They're
You're
gonna
going
make
to
him throw
have
the
to
ball.
throw the ball downfield, and you're going to have to throw the ball downfield efficiently in order to make a difference. And I think if he does that, even marginally better than he has so far, the Phillies are, I'm saying Phillies. Philly's going to be a dangerous team. They're going to be a problem
They're gonna be really good.
offensively. It's just that defensively, are they going to be able to stop the other team from scoring? Because the Eagles have now a nice set of weapons offensively to dictate what they want to do on offense. The
Right.
question would be, do they have the defense to be able to dictate what's done, what the other offense does? And having Jordan Davis to be mentored by Fletcher Cox and some of the other
Yes.
defensive linemen, they have the potential there to be a very dangerous
To be
team,
to be very legit.
I'm kind of concerned about that,
I am. Everything
unfortunately.
that everything that Jalen Hurts is going to have an issue with, AJ Brown comes in and helps. He's great around the line of scrimmage. He's great with those short and intermediate routes. Jalen Hurts is better at those than he does. He doesn't have to throw the ball deep downfield to have
Yeah,
AJ Brown be a monster
no.
for them. They
And he's
can,
going to AJ Brown's going to get the ball. He's going to shed a couple of tackles. He
yeah,
has very good
wonderful, wonderful
speed.
pick,
So I
wonderful
think
trade.
that's a trade that might propel them a little higher, and when it comes to power rankings. And I'm pretty sure after training camp is over and these rosters are set in stone, you're going to see there's going to be some more movement. You can guarantee that there will definitely be a lot more movement. But I think they had a very good day. I think they had a
I
very
agree.
good draft day, and you can't complain about them.
I agree.
Now,
You know
before
what?
we get to
Because
the team that had the best draft this year, I'm going to go with the team that has a B grade for their draft, which I was surprised to see. But again, it goes to show that sometimes getting the sexy name isn't always the way to do it. I was
talk
upset,
about talk about
but
your little team. Talk about your
now
team. Go ahead and get
Tyler
it off your
Smith
chest.
is a project. He has an A grade because of potential. I don't know if it's necessarily because of anything he'd done that was outstanding at Tulsa, but he gets an A grade. He works hard. He's strong. He's immensely strong. He's going to need to be in that division. Sam Williams, I really didn't know a lot about him except playing against Alabama and them losing every year to Alabama. So that's all I really knew about Ole Miss, about Sam Williams. But he gets an A- grade from scouts, so I think that maybe
One
they
of
know
the
more than
only,
I do.
yeah, one of the only picks I didn't want to go to Dallas,
Hmm.
late
Yeah,
around that time was Sam Williams. I
yeah.
think he's
And
going to
so
come in.
I think him
Everybody
playing with
loves him.
Micah
Everybody loves
Parsons.
him.
I think him playing with
Yeah,
Michael Parsons, Van Der Esch for one more year, and
yeah.
remember, uh, the linebacker from LSU who got hurt, Horn. He's coming back.
He's
That
coming back.
that linebacking core just got so much better,
Yeah,
which they needed.
it's true.
Jalen Tolbert, the wide receiver out of South Alabama, I like that pick. I mean, I watched
Okay.
tape of him. I didn't. They don't put South Alabama on TV much, but I did see some tape, and really, the
Okay.
kid, his point of his ability to go up and get the ball out of the
It's going to
air
help Dak a lot.
is going
Okay.
to help him great because he's very good at that. Jake Ferguson, another tight end. That's really for depth because I think they're going to sign Dalton Schultz to a multi-year deal.
Okay.
They franchised him this year, but I think they're going to sign him to a multi-year deal moving forward. I think Matt Waletzko, the offensive tackle from North Dakota, B- grade. You know what? I didn't see much of him except every year North Dakota and North Dakota State have a game on TV. I'll watch it because North Dakota State is so good every year. Now, here's the pick that sort of Um, it got a B minus grade.
Okay.
I don't know why Dallas likes projects so much. They did it with Jalen Smith. He was
Mm,
out for a year. Now they've done it again with Damone Clark, the linebacker out of LSU, who was a
okay.
second round grade,
Right.
but he had to have back surgery, spinal surgery.
Right. Right.
So he dropped all the way to the fifth, and he might not have been drafted if Dallas hadn't drafted him.
It's a good
So,
point.
um, but Dallas has every belief he's going to come back and be one of those linebackers of the future for Dallas. Um, John Ridgeway, the two picks that got the two lowest grades were the defensive tackle out of Arkansas, John Ridgeway, and the linebacker out of Oklahoma State, Devin Harper. They got a CNC plus grade.
Right.
I think Dallas didn't do anything to say they're locked in as a division leader right now. I think that what they did do was address every need they had on their roster.
Every need. Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
did it smartly by getting the players they know can contribute to the team. They Will McClay, who really does a lot of the scouting and drafting and suggesting, since he's taken over a bigger role with their drafts, Dallas drafts very well. Um, He's a good player personnel director. He's a really good at finding this talent. Um, and I'll go even further. I think they have an um, undrafted free agent um, that they're bringing in, who's a sleeper pick, my sleeper pick to make the roster, and he's out of Florida A&M. He's a safety.
Okay.
Uh, so normally, I would say that Dallas had a decent draft. I didn't think it would be rated this highly when you have two players with A grades, three, four, five players with B grades, um, two with C grades. I think that's a very solid draft. Their overall draft was a B. I think on
Okay.
average, B, B plus, C plus, B, B, B. So analysts believe by them addressing the needs they had, was a very good draft for Dallas, and I'm pleased at that. But they didn't. It remains to be seen if Jalen Tolbert, who's an excellent route runner, can beat Amari Cooper. I don't think
Okay.
so, but I don't think Amari had the reputation of taking some plays where his head wasn't always there. He was great
Okay.
one game, um, average the next. In the NFL, you got to be on top of your game every week.
You do.
And I think Jalen Tolbert is going to be a huge addition. He's an excellent route runner. He has outstanding speed. And I think he's going to complement CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and Noah Brown. I think the Dallas receiving core is going to be very good.
Okay.
Uh, Now, I'm going to give it to you for the
Man,
New York Football Giants.
we started off so beautiful, didn't we, baby? We started off so beautiful. As soon as Sauce Gardner was gone, all I wanted to do at 5-7 was go get best edge rusher and then whatever offensive tackle was left. So
Mhm.
coming into, I always thought Kayvon Thibodeau was the best edge rusher. I would have taken him. I would have taken him as soon as one overall. I would have
Mhm.
looked at, taking him over, the guy like Aiden Hutchinson, taking him over, you know, I mean, obviously, I would have potentially looked at taking him over Sauce Gardner, but it made sense for
Mhm.
him to go at 4. So getting Thibodeau at 5 made so much sense for us. We need the edge rush. We can start pairing him with, like our defensive line between Leonard Williams and Kayvon Thibodeau,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then you have like we've got a legit defensive line. Following up pick 7, getting who I felt was the best tackle in the draft, and Evan Neal. Not just because he's Alabama, roll damn tide, but just because I think he's the most polished offensive lineman in this draft. Him falling 7 was perfect for us. So now a team who was somewhat soft on the offensive line got better. Andrew Thomas is starting to come along more. He's a little bit better than he was. He's been getting better every year.
Mm-hmm.
Pairing him and Evan Neal, we should have those guys at tackle for the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
We should have Kayvon Thibodeau on our line for the next 10 years. I like Wandale Robinson. We took a wide receiver early, round two. Well, we traded back
Mm-hmm.
actually and
Yeah.
took him out of Kentucky. Very short kid, but he's a burner, super fast. It looks like we want to go five wide receiver for offense. We want to go five wide. We want to put Daniel Jones in the back, let our offensive line protect. But I mean, anybody who knows me knows last year I wanted to go take Justin Fields last year. I'm not sold on Daniel Jones. I don't think he's
Mm-hmm.
going to be that guy for us.
Okay.
But if he is going to be, we're setting him up for that. We have
Okay.
legit, we got Kenny Galladay. We'll have Sterling Shepard, who can hopefully stay on the field back. We have guys like Darius Slayton. We have Kadarius Toney. Now we have Wandale Robinson. We have guys who can make plays. We'll see what we do with Evan Ingram at tight end. Like we have guys who can go out and make plays. Can Daniel Jones get those guys the ball where they need to hit the ball? I understand going wide receiver there. I would have personally went N'Kobe Dean at that second round pick
Mm.
because I
Okay.
think putting another legitimate linebacker on this team makes this defense even more legit. I would have even went. I would have even went Booth there, the quarterback, the cornerback out of Clemson. I
Mm-hmm.
think because James Bradbury is going to eventually not be on his team. I think now if we keep Bradbury, I'm perfectly fine. I just don't think that going wide receiver. I can understand there. But we
Okay.
did follow up with another offensive guard out of North Carolina, Joshua Azudu. So I think
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be. I think he can compete for that starting guard job. I think he's got really good hands. He's a really good run blocker.
Mm-hmm.
If Saquon is going to be Saquon, if Saquon is back and he's healthy, I don't think he's going to be explosive, fresh out of Penn State Saquon. But if he's healthy, I still think he's a dynamic player. This team is set up on offense to see if Daniel Jones is that guy, and if we have what I think we need to have with Saquon.
Okay.
The draft gets even better for me. You know, going to get that safety Dane Belton out of Iowa. I think Dane Belton, we traded up for with Atlanta to go get him.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dane Belton is going to eventually be one of our starting safeties.
Oh
He's a
wow.
fourth round pick, but I
Mm-hmm.
think the kid has enough fundamental. I think he's going to be solid enough that he's going to come in and he's not going to lose games for us. He's not going to give up big plays for us. And we need the safety help. We do. We need that. We need all of that to make sense. So, it's just a simple thing for me. I wanted to get better on offensive line and get better on the defensive line, and we did that the first two picks. Then we solidified that a little bit. I would have loved to get Nicole Dean in that second round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's the one thing I would have really stood on. If we would have taken Nicole Dean there, I think knocked the draft out of the park. But I also think that we've been really, really, really smart with this. We get Gettleman out of here, and just saying his name made me close my eyes and thank God that Dave Gettleman is not our GM anymore. Because we came in and we stood where we needed to stand, and we got who I felt are the two best players at their position in the draft. It's been so long since the Giants did something that smart.
Yeah,
And
I
going
think
into
your
this
team
division,
did a fantastic
right?
job at sticking to their board. They knew with getting two picks in the top seven, they're going to get two outstanding players. You can't, you
100%.
shouldn't screw that up. Thibodeau was sitting there for them. Um, they got him. Evan Neal was sitting there for them. They got him.
We got him.
Um, you nailed those two picks with eight. Listen, I said that night of the draft, the Giants just won the draft because when you get the two best players at their position in the same draft, which rarely ever happens, you can't lose that draft.
Absolutely,
You can't
absolutely.
lose that draft. And they did address wide receiver. They addressed the offensive line, which has been an Achilles heel for the Giants
For
over
a
the
very
past
long
few
time.
years. So you addressed that with two picks. You got the actually three picks. You got Evan Neal, Josh Izudo, and then down in the fifth round you got Marcus McKeithen, offensive tackle from North Carolina. So you
He's
guys
not
went
bad.
out there.
He's not bad. He's a
Yeah,
guy who I think will be a practice squad guy for us. I don't think he's gonna have legit starting potential, but
but
he's
he
a guy
does
who you can bring
provide
in and you have depth.
rotational depth.
You need
So,
that,
and you
especially if
need
we're
that with
going five
pass happy
wide. We're gonna
league.
go
That's
tempo.
right. In a pass happy league, having rotational depth at defensive line and offensive line will carry you. You can give a guy a breather on a play. You can give a guy a breather on um, second and long. You can swap out, give a guy a breather. If it's still third and long, you bring your horses back in to go after the quarterback.
Right.
So I think the Giants did a phenomenal job this year, and you can tell that this GM knows what he's doing. You can tell that he has a plan in his head on how to build this roster. I think the Giants did very well. They came out of this draft with a B plus. I think it should be an A, and I
I
think
agree.
if um,
I agree. It should
I,
be an A.
I think that draft should be an A. I think that when you have when you've addressed your biggest weaknesses as a team, offensive line, um, and your defensive front seven, I think when you've done that, you have the potential to be special as a team. Now it's just about getting them to gel together, the coaching, getting them to gel together, buy into what you're trying to do. I
Right.
think um, with that in mind, I think that the NFC East, from a fan perspective, just got a whole lot more interesting.
Except for
Um,
Washington.
except for Washington, I think Washington. I think Philly
You
is
know
going
what?
to be very
That's
good,
not true. Washington
but
definitely got
Washington.
a lot more interesting because they're now the Commanders.
Oh yeah, well they're going to be commanding something because
Commendatore.
I think that in the division, the teams that helped themselves the most, Giants one for me,
Giants over Philly
Dallas
for you.
two, yeah, Giants over Philly because I think Philly still needs to address their linebacking core.
Okay.
They still need to address that. They still need to address their secondary as far as their especially their corners. They need to address that. Now they have a safety. I can't think of his name because I don't like them, but they do have a safety that's pretty good. But um, I think that the Philly did a good job. I think that it would be Giants, Philadelphia, Dallas. I think Dallas did what they had to do to address those
Okay.
needs. I think they had a very solid draft. Um, I think the Giants had the best, to me, I think they had the best draft in the division. I think they should have
Okay.
got an A grade instead of a B. I think they should have got an A grade. Um, so that window um, for Dallas just got a little tighter because last year it was NFC East. There wasn't a lot. Teams were playing bad in the whole
Right.
division, except Dallas. So now you're going to see what they're made of, and now you're going to see the Giants playing with a little bit more juice because of this infusion of great talent and
I
because
hope
of the
so,
vision of
man.
the team. So
This is
I
getting
think that
sad. This is getting heartbreaking. Like
well,
I'll just be looking at my TV with the
yeah,
just
and
want like,
listen,
come
and
on,
I
man,
think
what are we
that
doing?
um the Sean, you know, the rap the rap this particular segment, I think that the Sean Payton sweepstakes starts week 1. Um I still I think if
We know Sean Payton. We
Dallas
know
can
Sean
go
Payton is
15
coaching
and
Dallas next
2.
year.
Dallas can go 15-2. Mike McCarthy out of there, man. I think I think I think Dallas could go 15-2 and win the Super Bowl by 3 touchdowns, and Mike McCarthy's still out of Dallas. Let me tell you something. You he has no shot at being the head. In fact, he has zero shot of running that team next year. What did I say before the draft? before the draft, I said every player they draft is really for Sean Payton. They're not for Mike McCarthy.
You did. You did say that.
They're
You did
not
say
for
that.
Mike McCarthy. Look who they drafted: receiver help, tight end help.
That's
Right?
not that. That's not for
Listen,
money, Mike. That's not. That's
listen,
not.
money,
That's
Mike.
not.
Listen, listen. Week one's gonna come. He's gonna screw up with the clock. He's gonna. He's not gonna
Again.
challenge something that should be challenged. And
Again.
Jerry is gonna open that checkbook a little wider for Sean Payton and hand him a pen. Just here, just write a number down. Damn it. I
Please,
don't
baby.
even. So if you're the Cowboys who haven't won a Super Bowl since '95,
Mm.
and
This time was 10. The last time y'all won the
yeah,
Super Bowl.
last time they won a Super Bowl,
Mm.
and I have sat here and watched Dallas year after year after year upset me, stress me. I'm not stressing no more. I'm
You
not.
can't, man. I need you
I don't.
around.
I don't even
You can't let them
listen.
break you like this.
Nah, they can't. I stopped hanging out with people to watch games because Dallas stressed me so much. So this is the thing. I think the NFC East has gone from being a division where people said it wasn't that talented. I think they're now one of the better divisions. I still think that AFC West is ridiculously good.
Spooky. Yeah.
That team is that division is crazy good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Super Bowl champ came out of that division.
Okay.
Um, the NFC West got weaker. The Rams are still the class of that division, and as well they should be. But I think that the NFC East is going to be a whole lot tougher
I
than
think
they
so
were
too.
last year. I
I
think
think
that
so too.
from top to bottom, each team has a chance to beat up on each other and win some games. Um, but I still think, as far as draft goes, Giants had the best draft. Now we're going to see what happens now that the draft is over when you have teams start cutting players for salary cap reasons. You're going to see who goes where, because that will give you an idea on which team is trying to win right now. So you're going to have some very good players, some starting talent uh, out there looking for a home, um, especially before training camp starts. So you're going
I
to
agree.
see a lot of movement, a lot of. I think Clowney is still out there looking for a team, if I'm not mistaken. Um, he's been a disappointment in some ways, but he's a solid
Right.
player.
What's going to
Um,
happen with Debo Samuel? Is
what's going
he
to
going to
happen
get
with
traded?
Debo?
Right.
Is San Francisco going to pay him? Because he sees the money these other receivers are making. He's going to want his. So if San Francisco willing to pay him, they'll still be good, but they're not going to beat the Rams. So I think that moving forward for the next year, we're going to watch how training camp shakes out. We're going to see
Mm-hmm.
what happens, and we're going to see how players, especially some of these draft picks, how they're adapting to the pro game, which is a lot faster than the college game. I think that we're going to see what happens, but I think the NFC East, they're gonna be a handful for whoever plays them.
I agree.
I
I
think
agree.
Washington will be serviceable. I don't. Depending on who their quarterback is going to be, which I don't really care much because I'm a Cowboys fan. So, I, they can bring RG3 back for all I care. So, so RG3 better than Taylor Heineke. So I just feel like, it's, and I say that in jest, Washington fans. Like, you guys understand that.
Oh,
You
we're never going to like you.
so
No.
it's going to be a fun year for football, and I think that every team out there, everybody's 0-0. So you get a chance to see what your team is made of. If these players are as good as your front office believes they are, and we're about to find that out. We're about to
We
find
are.
out really quick. And
We are.
I think the Giants, though.
We
My
out
boy
here,
Evan
man.
Neal,
We're trying to
let's
be
hope
out
that
here.
Evan Neal becomes the next Orlando Pace and not the next Tony Mandarich or somebody. Let's
Uh,
hope that I think
don't
Tony
do that.
Mandarich played a different position, but you don't want to
You,
go that high in
you
the
know what we're
draft.
saying. You
And
know what we're saying.
and
Be a
and
cornerstone
not,
for us on that
yeah,
offensive
yeah,
line
you
for the
need to be
next
a
10, 12
cornerstone.
years.
Yeah,
That's really it.
you
And I
need
think he
to
will.
be, you
And
need
I
to
think
be
he
that.
will.
And I think in New York, um, I think he's going to get good coaching. I think he's going to get, as long as he's not distracted, like some of these rookies can be sometimes. As long as he's not doing that, I think the world of your draft, and good luck. So everyone, let us know what you think in the comments of our
Absolutely.
breakdown of the division, who we thought were had interesting drafts outside of the NFC East. We will touch on football again as training camp starts to open. But for now, for
We
next week's
definitely
show,
definitely going to get into some NBA playoffs.
we're
It's
gonna
time
get
to
into
really
some
start
NBA
getting into
playoffs.
this.
Yes,
Playoff series might even be over by then. We can start
yeah,
seeing what
you
these
never
conference
know.
finals look like.
That's
We'll
right.
definitely get into some NBA playoffs. We appreciate you being with us. Like button definitely helps us a lot. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the channel. We've got some wonderful things planned, beautiful things coming along. As we get better, we're definitely going to put ourselves out here and give you guys the best content that we can. We just love doing this. Whether you like it or not, whether you love it or not, whether you plan on being with us for the long haul, we're going to be here because we just love sports, love each other, and we just love sharing it with you all. So like
That's
button,
right.
hit that subscribe button, comment. We will definitely read the comments. We'll comment throughout the week, respond to you. We appreciate you all, and we'll be back soon. We'll be back next week with a little
Be
NBA
back
talk.
next week with a
We'll
little NBA
definitely get
talk,
some NBA talk.
and yeah, so
Yeah,
let's get it. We
absolutely,
got a lot to discuss in the NBA, and then
absolutely.
so week to week, we're gonna leave us suggestions of what you want to hear.
Yeah,
We'll try to incorporate that into the pod, and we're gonna make it happen for you. But as far as I'm concerned, without you, we're just talking to ourselves. So we're
it
glad you're
won't be the
here.
first time.
That's right. That's
it
right.
won't.
So we're
It
glad you're
won't be the
here.
first time.
Let's have a great time, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Ace in a
Absolutely.
Quiet Storm.
Yes,
We'll
sir.
talk to
Yes,
you
sir.
soon.
Appreciate you.